right, take two. Welcome to Real Boxing Talk, Real Boxing Talking, Real Boxing, all that stuff live from the Matterhorn or whatever that is behind me. We've got a lot to talk about, and we've got a weird internet connection today, so let's get into it. Well, first of all, let me mention that I did predict this fight was going to happen the way it happened. 4 rounds, Crawford, no problem at all. Now I'm 1 in 103,000 million or something like that. So if you ever want to place a bet on a boxing match, you know that I will get it right for you once every 4 or 5 years. So come see me. Welcome, gentlemen. We're going to talk a little boxing, a lot of things going on. Let's start with the 4-round knockout, or TKO, I guess you should say, of Kell Brook by Terrence Crawford. We'll get right into it. Charles, what did you think of this fight, or at least on how Crawford approached it?
I think he's right on point. I mean, he has the same game plan for the most part. He delivered. He got him out of there pretty quick. I do think one thing is a little different because they said that he never really comes in with a true strategy. He kind of fills it out a little bit. I think that cost him a little bit because of the experience that Kell Brook has. But I think we found out that this is not the Kell Brook we thought was going to be the guy was going to be. It's not the guy that beat Sean Porter in 2016, right? It's not the guy that I don't think fought Triple G. He's not the guy that fought Errol Spence. He was in great shape. He gave us all, but he's not the same fighter. And I think Crawford was able to wear him down at a point. And when you listen to even most importantly, listen to Kell Brook's post interview, right? He just said, I gave it all I had. I was ready, but he did some things I've never seen before. You know, nothing to take from Crawford, but you could just tell the way he was saying it's like, I didn't have an answer. I started touching him early, but afterwards I didn't have an answer. And it's not to take from Crawford, but I think it really shows you that Kell Brook can beat a couple people on certain nights, but that top tier fighter like Crawford, that might be past where he's at. And I think that's what's really key. But not to take anything from Crawford, he came in sharp. But I'll say this real quick, get out the way. I was a little surprised by the jab and the way that Brook got to him early. And you start to see the swelling of the eye. That's of a concern to me, but that's just nitpicking. But for the most part, it was an impressive victory and performance by Crawford.
Well, John, we were surprised, I think, from the weigh-in of the shape that Kell Brook was in, because that was the question. Could he get to that weight? Could he be in shape? And was it more he was in fitness center shape and not necessarily boxing shape, or was it he just got outclassed by a guy that can fight?
You see, the thing that's interesting is, it's all the above, but what's interesting is Kell Brook was winning that fight when he won by stoppage. I thought he was fighting pretty well, actually. He wasn't actually fighting explosively, but he had the edge. He was out jabbing Crawford. He was doing well with his jab. He was keeping Crawford off balance. And Crawford is a notorious slow starter. So while I was watching it, it never popped in my head, oh boy, Brook is going to pop the upset here, because they said on ESPN that our favorite network, they said that the money, a lot of the late money was coming in for Brook. Okay. And that really kind of surprised me. And if you've ever watched any of Crawford's fights, almost every one of them, he starts like this. He loses a few rounds. He's very cerebral about it. He's looking at his opponent. And then the minute he went southpaw, everything changed. He had the answer, and Brook had no answer for him when he went southpaw. He started touching him with his right jab instead of his left. And you could see that the fight was slowly starting to turn. But again, Crawford has done that all his career. Even when he fights guys that are obviously not as good as him, he kind of builds to a crescendo, and then he gets them out of there, especially lately. You know, he's been knocking everybody out. So I was obviously impressed. And as far as Brook goes, yeah, I think he was in the best shape he could be at in this point in his career. His reflexes probably aren't as good. He's not as sharp as he once was, all that stuff. The age difference. You know, maybe Crawford is a young 33, but of course, when we came in, when we were talking about Crawford before, we were talking about how he was dropped in his last fight unofficially. And maybe he was starting to go a little the other way too. So that was one of the things. Obviously, he's not. I think it was just an example of him being at the top of his game that night, and Brook would never be at the top of his game again. Yeah, that was not the same guy who beat Sean Porter. I watched that fight. He was a little slower in all areas, but I don't want to take anything away from Crawford because that was a surgical victory over Brook. I mean, he took his time. He figured him out. He started jabbing him, and then he ran him right into that right hand, and then he took care of him. He's a nasty fighter in there, which is what you got to be. And he's just I was actually very impressed by that performance. I thought he was right. I'll say what Charles said. He was right on point.
Well, Charles, we spoke about 15 minutes before the fight, and you said it would go 8, and I said it would go 4. Now, my reasoning was I thought he was going to come out stronger than normal and touch up those problem areas that we spoke about last week with the facial lacerations and all that stuff that he's gone through before. And he didn't do that. But as you said, he came out, he kind of pity-patted around for a while to figure out what he had to do. And then when he figured out what he had to do, he went a lot quicker than I thought because I almost didn't see it. It's like, okay, well, the 4th round is going to be like the first 3. He's going to kind of get into it by, like you said, by 7 or 8, he's going to really wear him down. And then all of a sudden, boom, 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 it's over. I'm like, whoa, that kind of surprised me.
Yeah, I mean, I can see that. But even with Crawford being a slow starter, I thought it was a matter of time. It's just when was it going to happen? And granted, I thought if you can get to 4, why can't you get to 8, right?
Right.
But John made a valid point, really a valid point. When he switched to southpaw, it was like all bets were off. It just changed the perspective of the fight for him, the view that he had. And it's like, wow, he's doing that. Now he's touched me a little bit more. And then he could not, Brook could not really cover himself anymore. And then he was kind of like a sitting duck. It's like, okay, all right, he's going to hit me now. Oh, and then it just went on and on. So he built up on it. And like I said, it's nothing to take away from Crawford. He was surgical, like John said, in his approach. It's just that when I saw Kell Brook, as he was fighting a good fight, he was touching me, which I thought he would do with the jab. And you see the markings on Crawford's face that was happening with the eye, that it was a great effort, but it was like, okay, now enough of that. Enough of it. And he came in with a great plan, but it just that's what he had. And, that's what we talk about. Not saying he was a one-trick pony. He just didn't have a defense for that other thing that Crawford brought, that other alternative, which was turning southpaw. He didn't have an answer for that. And I said, there's no disrespect for that. I love Kell Brook. I like the way his attitude is. He'll fight anybody. He came in with the right attitude. He just gave it to him. And he just said, hey, what you want me to do? I came in with good intention.
Right.
I take that all day.
Yeah. Well, John, it was, as you mentioned, it was like, there was just a crack in the dam, a little bit, and then I didn't expect that. That's not what I see from, like Charles said. Crawford is surgical. He figures you out, he breaks you down, he wears you down, and then boom. I don't think, and correct me if I'm wrong, have we seen that from him before? It was like he flipped the switch and just boom, right there.
Yep. Yeah, he did that before a few years ago. Unfortunately, age again. Here we go again. I can't remember the opponent he did it to, but he was actually, fight was even, and he was supposed to dominate. Then in the 5th round, I remember the round, boom! He just changed the whole fight around and stopped him. Mm-hmm. And who was it, darn it? But I'll look in a minute. But, yeah, so he has done that before. But usually he just figures you out and then beats the crud out of you for a while, and it just takes over and starts dominating. That's his pattern. Yeah, Crawford has got another level. I think that's the other thing too. I always talk about that. Everybody in sports has levels, and in basketball, baseball, football, boxing, we know that there are guys like this, and then there's a guy that's like this. And it seems like it takes him a few rounds before the cream always rises, right? So the fight looks pretty even, and then he just and you think, okay, he's getting ready to do what he does, and he is cerebral. And the guy that I always mention him, I'm going to start doing like we do with the other guy in Vegas. I'm going to start going, that guy from Oakland that I covered so much, he was very cerebral. But he wouldn't start slow. He'd start fast. He'd let a guy know, except when he fought Kessler, who knocked him down. But most of the time before that, when I think he was really in his prime, he'd get off to a fast start and show a guy right now, nope, I'm the boss in here. I'm better than you. You're not even close to me. He wouldn't say it, but he'd do it. And that's another similarity about Crawford and that guy from Oakland is they're not braggarts. They say I'm the best, but they're not saying it in a terrible way. They're not yelling and screaming. That's just the way he is. It might be because he's from Nebraska, you know, and people just don't scream and yell and get on buildings and, you know, do all those kind of things. But he's that way, and I don't think he should be penalized. I know I'm not trying to blow where we're going here, but I think you are what you are, and that's what he is, and he should be celebrated for his fistic abilities, not whether he's got a flappy mouth, which is another thing totally.
Well, he's also got that mom in the corner too that'll do that for him.
They're pretty loud, yes.
All right. There are a few other things we want to talk about this fight. We'll get into it because it kind of flows into other stuff. Let's go to the undercard of that fight, which was the bubble rematch of Joshua Franco against Andrew Moloney. I got the right Moloney in this one.
Yes.
It looked all right. Let's see, Charles. What did that fight look like to you from the first round on? Because it only went to the middle of the second round. Yeah,
well, I mean, you're watching it and you're like, okay, you're watching Moloney, and then you keep watching, and then all of a sudden you notice the eyes start to swell. And then you start thinking from a regular perspective, anybody would say, how'd that happen? So I need to see that even more. And then you start to see a punch, and then you go back, and then you see the referee start to check everything. And then it goes on to that point. But I think it just shows you that the biggest thing was, did he get punched? Or was that a butt? And when you watched that, it just made you go, ooh. And the more and more that you saw the replays from ESPN, then it showed you that this boxing federation or association don't know what the hell they talking about. And the frustrating part more than anything was everybody saw it. Get it right.
Well, okay. Go ahead and finish.
I'm saying get it right, because it's almost like everybody's watching it. It's like it's an ego thing, okay? Even if whatever you want to call it, and the referee, what I just say this real quick. What I found interesting was the referee immediately said, "This is from a headbutt," and maybe that's his call. But if it is, great. But if it's not, the people on the outside, the Larry Hazards, whoever, it's your job at that point to let him know what he saw is not what he thought he saw is not what was real. That's what the replay is about. That's what I don't want to be too much on the soapbox here. That's what the replay is about. That's what the association is. That's what they're there for. And when you have all these millions of people watching, boxing fans, it is imperative that you get that right. I'm just saying, however long it takes, get that right.
Well, it took a while. John, this is the thing about this that okay, first of all, what's your take on the fight itself and then the aftermath?
Okay, the guy that Crawford stopped suddenly was Hank Lundy a number of years ago. And Lundy was a very mouthy guy, and Crawford actually stood over him when he knocked him down because he doesn't like people that get really mouthy. Yeah, there you are. That's where you're going. The fight, Moloney, you could tell right away. Moloney was driven by revenge. Now, that doesn't always mean that something's going to be different in a second fight, because everybody always says, I want revenge. And he also said what a lot of guys say, I know what I did wrong, and I'm going to improve upon it. When we were on last week, we were both talking, and Charles made the point that it was like Santa Cruz and Frampton. And I agreed, where Santa Cruz said, okay, I know what I did wrong, and this time it's not going to happen. And in the first round, I went, boy, we nailed it, because we both said that we thought Moloney was going to win because he was sharp. He was jabbing him like he got off the first punch in the last round. First part of the round, the last part of the round. He was beating him up. It was early, But right away, you're like, okay, he's going to win. He's going to win this fight. He might stop him late, or he's going to win a decision. But this kid is on point again. That he's fighting extremely well. And then this happens, and I went, oh, they have that 4-round rule, and I'm like, okay, well, just get the 4 rounds because he's obviously going to win.
Right.
You know, he won the rounds easily, and then the doctor stops it and waves it off. And I groaned, and as I was watching those guys, Robert Byrd and Bob Bennett, I said to my lady, I said, they're not going to overturn it. There would have to they'd have to be in one corner not fighting, then they would have overturned it. Said, well, they never came close to each other, so we didn't see it. But if there's going to be anything where they're, you know, and then they're even on the wrong side of the eye a lot of times. So there was no butt that went there. So I'm literally yelling at the computer after 20 minutes. Come on. The NFL says the term the NFL uses, that you need really strong to overturn something.
Conclusive evidence, yeah.
It seemed pretty strong to me that there was no butt. And the ESPN team showed the jab. His eye reacted. Now, he might have been butted once. He might have been slightly bumped. His shoulder might have went there. But come on, guys. You spend 35 freaking minutes staring at that video. I just got the feeling they were covering their asses. That was the feeling I got, you know?
Yeah.
And that's why I said, she goes, were they going to overturn it? And I said, you know, I'm not a gambling man, but if I was in Vegas right now, I bet you $1 million they won't overturn it. And then 10 minutes later, I went, oh, and she goes, you were right. And I said, unfortunately, I didn't want to be right. And then, of course, I felt terrible for Moloney, who, as we know, is a very emotional person, which is fine. Started to cry a little bit again after the interview. He wanted it so badly. And I just think my friend Anthony Cox is from Australia, obviously, like Moloney. He's obviously a little biased, but he said it was a black eye on boxing, and I completely agree.
Well, you know, the thing all right, here, I'll set up what I didn't like about the whole thing. One, and we've talked about this before, sometimes it's not a bad idea to turn the sound down and just watch. So I'm listening to Timothy Bradley go nuts.
Yes.
I understand why he's going nuts, but again, Andre Ward says, you know, dial it down a little bit. Let's wait until the decision before we get crazy about it. So that was the thing. Okay, you know, I don't think anyone is trying to screw anybody over. They're just trying to, as you said, cover their own behinds. All right. But even then, as they showed it for the umpteenth time, and I said, just show the whole round. You know, you've got this time frame blocked out on ESPN for another hour. You can show 3 minutes of the entire fight. And when they said, they're watching what we're watching. Like, okay, if the replay people were watching what we were watching, and even if you take the announcers off of it, and you're watching it, like you said, head's on the other side. You know, there's nothing there. There's nothing there. The one time that his head was there, it was, you know, Franco hitting Moloney in the head, and then maybe that was a clash. But it wasn't anything that was up here. It was all down here. There's nothing up here, nothing here. Nothing. It was all down on the cheek from what I can see. So we get to that point. And again, we've seen it now for, what did they say, 20-some minutes we're watching it. I'm convinced there's no way that they're going to – the only thing they're doing is making sure they've got it right because they've seen it enough times and they've seen exactly what's happening. And they come out and they say, and still make, are you kidding me? That's just not possible. And if you're going to have replay, use it. I mean, right. Charles, I'm trying to figure out what is it that other than covering your own butt, what could they have possibly been trying to A, why did it take so long? And B, how did they come up with the wrong decision?
And first of all, let me apologize for throwing Larry Hazard under the bus. It was Robert Byrd. So let me apologize.
Right.
Listen, but I agree with John to the point that they made a decision. It's kind of like basketball refereeing, right? You like, look, you get fouled. Well, one thing, you got fouled. We're watching the replay. He did get fouled, so we're sticking with the call. And I think what they tried to do was because the referee was so adamant about what he said he saw, that it's like we're not going to undermine our guy. So we're going to look at it, and if we think, unless there's that evidence that we think clearly shows that nothing happened, then we're going to stick with the decision. What I found ironic, though, is somebody mentioned, one of the announcers mentioned it earlier, is that the one thing they should have talked about, and I thought that might have been the case, is like a thumb in the eye. Because you saw one of the punches, it was almost like here when it came down, and you could say, okay, maybe that was it. They got off of that and instead kept looking about, the headbutting. I think the punch where it kind of comes down to maybe thumbing in the eye or something close with the gloves, I can see more of that being a reaction if you want to give a reason. But even with that being said, when they talked about that, they said that under the rules, that's still considered part of the glove. So it's not really something like an incident that you would take points away from. It's part of the ruling. But getting back to your point, I think it really came down to, as John said earlier, of them saving face and saying, even though we know we're wrong, we're falling on the sword. And we're gonna go like man for man. We're gonna toe the company line. You can be mad as hell as you want to. We're gonna say this is what we saw. We're gonna stick with our guys. And then what they're probably gonna end up doing is saying, now we're gonna order a rematch and move forward from that. Like, we're saving face, yeah, but we're gonna get it right because they're gonna rematch it again, and we'll go from there.
If you are Moloney, John, do you want a rematch? Do you trust a rematch? I've spent the better part of the last year here in Las Vegas, and I'm from Australia. My brother and myself have spent the better part of the last year in Las Vegas, away from family, away from our homeland, to get this done. I know that I didn't perform to my utmost the first fight. I came out, I rectified it, I did what I had to do, and now, do you stick around for another 6 months or 3 months or whatever? Or you say, screw it, I'm going back to Australia and I'm going to fight kangaroos.
Well, yeah, mentally it's going to be really tough. And I think Moloney and his promoter, that Arum guy, I heard that supposedly the talk is the third fight will be in Australia. So, let's even it up that way. And that'll be... Yeah, there's no way he's going to lose in Australia. I mean, we might as well just count it as a victory already. But I know I saw Charles on the corner. I got, yeah. Well, what it reminds me, Charles, of is basketball, where a referee would miss one and they'd say later, oh, he's making up for the one he missed. Right, remember, they'd say it was an obvious missed one, and he'll, what? He's making up for the one he missed. So maybe this, in essence, is the same thing, where they're going, okay, we missed that. You're right. We screwed it up. We covered our asses. But you're going to give you the third fight in Las Vegas. I mean, in Australia, to make it up. You will likely win, and then that'll be the end of it. So, I mean, it's just typical boxing, where boxing always likes to shoot itself in the foot. That's what drives me so crazy. Here's a time where they've got instant replay. Great idea. But as you said, Frank, if you're not going to use it correctly, if I was on the commission, I would say, then don't use it. Throw it out. Because it just made us look like morons. Made us look like we got no guts. We can't see, obviously. We don't know what we're doing. So then forget it. It's not worth having it. So, yeah, that's the story. Supposedly the third fight is going to be in Australia in a number of months. Introduced by Jeff Horn.
And, right.
Exactly. I thought of that, too.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so... All right, so let's morph this together as we have that guy that we've talked about, Bob Arum, I'm sorry, that's been around for a couple of minutes. We see two things happening here, I think, with Bob Arum. And I'm sure that with Bob Arum, not only are there two things, there are 127 things under the surface we don't even begin to understand. One, we had the post-fight interview for Bud Crawford. And the thing that Bob Arum says, hey, you get Spence and Garcia, and we'll fight them both on the same day. Bud Crawford will kick their butts. That's what he said then. What's he saying now, Charles?
Well, I mean, as we talked a little bit off air, is the factor that he's frustrated with Crawford. Like, they asked him about re-signing Crawford. And he's like, we're giving him everything. We've done everything we can for him, put him in the right position. And, if he doesn't want to be here, then basically, he can kind of like kick rocks. And it's like, what? And he's like, I've been doing this a long time. I've been around a lot of people, and this is the best place for him. He doesn't think that's good enough. It almost reminded me of something else, and I'm not going to say that else, but he lost another younger fighter, a very good fighter years ago that kind of.
I think I know who you mean.
Yeah, under the same circumstances, said, "Yo, peace and love."
Ding.
So it just depends on right now, and maybe somebody will come and say, "Hey, look, he was off his medication or something, right?" He might get a second shot because when you're dealing with the elderly, no disrespect, but you can blame it on lack of medication, too much medication. You can blame it on something, and then the person, your client, will go, "Well, yeah, how he say something crazy. He really didn't mean it. He just kind of frustrated because he thought he heard something, but he really didn't hear anything at all." But we're better now because we're back on our meds and our schedules, 2, 6, and 10, right? We're back on our meds. So you don't have a problem with it. Whatever you want to do, you let us know, and we'll move forward. That's what it sounds like to me. The man is getting older. God bless him. I don't have no ill will to him, but he's 88 with some change, and and he's rich. He can do what he wants to. But you have to ask yourself, as a fighter like Crawford, what is he thinking? Is that at the end of the day, that's all that matters.
Right.
It's all that matters, because that's up in the summertime, that contract, and we know this is not going to be Bud Crawford's last fight. So this is going to be quite interesting.
For some reason, I'm thinking "Blame It on the Rain" by Milli Vanilli, and anyhow, and I won't even do it. I need the wig. All right, but okay. So as we're moving forward here, John, and now we have this cloud over what should be a good achievement for Bud Crawford. Hasn't fought in a while because of all the various circumstances that are going on in the world. He gets a chance to show what he can do. He doesn't get Spence. He gets an older, maybe not in his prime, Kell Brook, but he goes out and he dominates and takes care of business. And then his promoter has I was going to use a nice, good word for that, balls to come out and say, "Yeah, but." What? I mean, I don't even know if I have a question there. Huh?
Oh, absolutely. I was stunned. I mean, he said that if all the money he's lost in the last 3 fights with Crawford, he could go buy a nice house in Beverly Hills. That's paraphrasing, but that's basically what Aaron said. He said he's going to go bankrupt. And I'm like, then he lectured him and said that, guys like Oscar and Hearns and Sugar Ray, they couldn't get to a camera soon enough. And then he needs to start doing that more. He needs to start promoting. And I'm thinking, wait a minute there, buddy. Isn't promoter near your name? So I just thought he was, I don't know what it was. Maybe you're right about the meds. Maybe he's kind of turned into an old curmudgeon as he's gotten older. I'm always joking about getting grouchy as we get older. He definitely is a Grinch. He's just a cranky old opinionated guy who just spews these kind of things. And I thought the same thing. He even said, well, if he wants to leave, then that's fine. I mean, I told you, if it's me, because the way I am, I would have told him right then, well, we're done. I know I got a contract with you, and I got 2 fights, I think, but that's it. Because I don't need you. I don't need you. You obviously don't want me. What's the point? I'll go to PBC and maybe I'll get Errol Spence. I'll talk to that other guy in Vegas that you had problems with. I'll talk to him. He kind of knows about this. So if you, buddy. I'm the fighter. You're the promoter. Do your job.
You talk about a heart attack waiting to happen.
Well, now, but see, this is what we talked about, and this is the segue. We'll get back into Moloney and Franco in a second, but this is the segue into Canelo and Callum Smith. How did that happen in 3 days? When you couldn't get him a fight for a year and a half, he's on his own for 3 days or however long it was, and now, boom, there he is. So this kind of goes along into that same thing of Do I need the promoter to make the fight? We used to call those guys matchmakers. And then we make the fight. Then you promote the fight.
Yeah, Frank,
go ahead.
I'm sorry. I was just going to say, I thought of something when I was writing an article on this. Have you guys ever heard Eddie Hearn put down any of his fighters and say they need to promote more? I mean, what does Joshua do? What does he do? He fights once a year. That's pretty much it, right?
I don't even know what the guy looks like. Yeah.
Exactly. So what he was saying to me was just totally sour grapes. Just totally just ridiculous. Totally ridiculous.
Okay, first of all, if he's losing money on Bud Crawford fights, that's not Bud Crawford's fault.
Right.
Okay, you can say, well, he's fighting in Oklahoma, he's fighting here, he's fighting. Okay, but who let that happen? The guy that put the fight on, the guy who struck the deal with the gate, with the whatever. That's the promoter's part of it.
Exactly.
If Bud Crawford isn't drawing people, there's nothing Bud Crawford can do about that other than go out and perform. Now, yeah, he can do a little more press, I guess, if that's what you want. But if that's not going to happen, you, the promoter, figures out a more creative way to generate interest in the fight. That's what your job is. You know, if you're blessed enough to have a Muhammad Ali who promotes the fight himself, more power to you. How many of those guys are there? And is Bud Crawford that guy? No. He's from Omaha, Nebraska.
Right.
And he's an Omaha, Nebraska kind of person. What does that mean? I don't know what it means, but he does.
He's quiet.
He's not out there.
Frank, they did a documentary called Relentless. I don't know if you guys saw it, and they showed, and that was the idea. Remember that 24/7 that they used to do on HBO, and that guy from Vegas was always focused. And those were great 30-minute little documentaries. I absolutely loved those. And I was thinking, why don't they do those with Crawford? I mean, he's getting close to 40 fights and he hasn't lost. I mean, that's pretty damn good. I don't care, you know? So, yeah, now they do it. Well, what about before, Bob? Why didn't you try to do this before? You have to build up a fighter. You don't just assume. So, I don't know. It completely disgusted me. And if Bob Arum reads my article on Max Boxing tomorrow, it's unlikely that I'll get a Christmas card, Frank.
Well, Charles, now you've been around the weigh-ins, you've been in the halls, in the back rooms, and all that. And I've had the privilege of running some Terrence Crawford fans a couple of years ago in Las Vegas, and it was like, hey, you know, our guy, Bud's fighting. And I was like, oh yeah, we're from Omaha, and that was it. It wasn't like we're gonna kick it. It was like, hey, we're here for the fight. Let's, we're going to have a great time and we're going to enjoy ourselves. And that's about it. It wasn't a bunch of show, no. Now, that's, again, the Omaha kind of thing, I would think. Charles, you've been around a lot of venues, a lot of stuff. There's usually more buzz from the people at the event than there is for a Bud Crawford fight from Omaha. That's not his fault. That's, again, where he comes from. How can the promoter capitalize on Bud Crawford or blame Bud Crawford for being who he is?
You really can't. I mean, because there are things that happen that you can't go, oh, he's like the greatest of all time. And John will recognize this. I mean, if you were to look at somebody like Andre Ward, you wouldn't say Andre Ward is like the most exciting person in the world. He's just a pretty humble guy, easygoing, to make it exciting for him. I think the key would be for Arum to do like he says he's trying to do. I'm not so much sure how that is, but you just have to put him in a ring with the right damn people. I'm sorry. I mean, he's been sitting on the shelf. Mm-hmm. Everybody talking about he's coming up to 147, and he's been gradually moving him up, fighting this guy. Okay, yeah, you fought Kell Brook. You fought from Australia. We just talked about him, Horn. And that's all well and good. But if you really want to make the money and you really want to promote him and get past all this stuff, even with the pandemic, put him in the ring with the people we want to see. And it's not to take away from Crawford. Crawford, you set him up, like you said, you knock him down. That's what he does. Easily. Okay, great. But now we're talking about that next level. We're talking about that upper echelon. Now it's time to move forward. Everybody wants to see the Errol Spence Jr. fight. Okay, great. You don't want to see that? We can't get to it? Then let's move on. But the one thing that I found ironic is, and even Terence Crawford said it immediately, who you want? Manny Pacquiao. Why? When I heard that, first thing was legacy, right? And money. Mm-hmm. Everybody knows what that means. Pay-per-views, whatever. People are going to around the globe want to watch it. But when you really think about, in my humble opinion, when you think about perspective, and the one thing you talked about, pay-per-view and making people be aware, Pacquiao will do that because it's Pacquiao.
Right.
And I get that, but that's not where it is. If I'm that boxing guy and you want to get my interest, put him in there as somebody that's going to challenge him. And I'm not saying Pacquiao can't rise to the occasion like he did against Keith Thurman, but is that going to be enough? The chances are that Pacquiao is going to be going this way instead of coming this way. Those are the chances. But the money-wise, yeah, you're going to get your money. People are going to tune in, and maybe that's what it's all about. But if you really want to start to build up so people go outside in Omaha, Nebraska, where they really want to see him and go, yeah, this is the guy we got to see even before he gets to Errol Spence, put him in the ring with Shawn Porter. and I'm just saying that because we know what Shawn Porter's bringing. Errol Spence beat Shawn Porter. My last point on this is even Errol Spence called out Pacquiao. Not because it's a great fight. It's about the money.
Sure.
It's all it's about. Can Pacquiao win? What are the chances? Now, and as I ask you this, as I walk away, give me a percentage of Pacquiao having and defeating Errol Spence and Terence Crawford.
Well, let's look at it this way. It's a no-win situation boxing-wise for Crawford to fight Manny Pacquiao. Because if he wins, you beat an 80-year-old man. If you lose, you lost to an 80-year-old man. It's a no-win situation for him boxing-wise, but respect-wise, legacy-wise, fan favorite-wise, whatever you want to call it, visibility-wise, money-wise, it's a smart move because he's already not getting the fights that he wants. You might as well get a fight that's going to do those things for you. It's not going to enhance your boxing stature, but I don't know if there's any other fights out there that are going to. Even Shawn Porter. I understand what you're saying, but again, you beat Shawn Porter. Well, he beat Shawn Porter. He beat Shawn Porter. He beat Shawn Porter. Big deal. I know. No, I know where you guys are at with that, and I agree with you. But I'm saying from the general.
He did. So we'll have to pick it up from there.
Yeah. No. I agree with you, Charles. Because they're called prize fighters, and the prize is money. And I think the reason he's saying Pacquiao, obviously, I agree, is that he's a businessman. I mean, Bo Mack, his trainer, says it all the time. Terence is a businessman. But also, sure, everything Frank said is right. If he stops Pacquiao, which is very possible, right, but he definitely would win. Mm-hmm. And it would be a pay-per-view fight, most likely. He'd make more money than he's ever made in his career. Sure. And it certainly wouldn't hurt for him to come out and say, okay, I've been calling out this guy forever. I want Spence. I beat Pacquiao. I want Errol Spence Jr. So it really can't hurt him any more than where it is. But like you, being the boxing purists that we are, unlike Frank, not there now. I would love to see Terence Crawford in there with Shawn Porter. Yeah. Shawn Porter would give Terence Crawford hell. I don't know if he'd win, but he would be right there, dogging him, punching him, moving away from him because he's such a good athlete that Terence is the more talented. We know that. Right. But he is going to be in a dogfight, and he probably is thinking, I don't really want that. I don't know if he thinks that way. He's probably like, fine, but let me fight Pacquiao first, get a title, then maybe I'll make my first defense against Sean Porter if I don't get Errol Spence. But yeah, no, I agree with you. It's that word we like. I don't know if it's really crafty on. I think it's more just reality because he's seeing that he's been calling out Spence for what, 3 years?
Yeah.
And nothing.
Yeah.
Maybe he would have got him if Errol Spence had been in an automobile accident. Maybe. I don't know. I don't know. But yeah, back to that just for a second. I see Frank now is back. Sean Porter and Terrence Crawford would be one that I would not miss. Even if you paid me to miss it, I would not miss it.
Yeah.
Frank frozen again?
I think he is.
Yeah. So yeah.
But I'm with you on that. I mean, granted, the Pacquiao versus Crawford or Pacquiao Spence for both of them is a money grab. You talk about legacy, put that notch on your belt. I get that. I agree with a lot of things that Frank said. But if you're talking about generating excitement, if you're talking about generating buzz and having people go, this is something that I can't miss, like you said, it's not Pacquiao. Yeah, we'll watch it. People will pay pay-per-view or whatever they're going to do. They will, just because it's Pacquiao. People love Pacquiao. They'll do that. But when he mentioned it, he mentioned, what can a promoter do? This is what Frank said. Correct me if I'm wrong. He said,
"You're wrong.
Thank you. What can a promoter do to create the buzz from the average person?" And Pacquiao will grab your attention because it's Pacquiao and everybody knows about it.
It's Pacquiao.
Right. But the buzz, because one thing we know about Sean Porter, he's coming forward. He's not going to go backwards. And the only reason why I say this is he's coming forward. And Crawford being a slow starter, there's nothing different about Sean Porter. He's not changing this game. He is who he is. He's the only man to push back Keith Thurman for the first time. And he gave it the same way to Danny Garcia.
Spence too.
Same way too.
Spence,
so,
right, yeah.
And all I'm saying is, I mean, like I said, I'm just one opinion. And you guys mentioned about why Spence wasn't fighting before. I think Spence was like, I'm working through this myself. Why am I going to take a dangerous fight like that until I get to the top of the throne? Make it worth my while money-wise. Why am I going to take a chance? And they do it all the time. Why am I going to take a chance and kind of put myself backwards? Let me get on the throne. And once I'm on the throne, that's why he won't fight Keith Thurman. I'm on the throne now. I can selectively go, here I am. And he knows in his mind, he thinks he can beat Danny Garcia. He thinks he's going to get that fight. And then when you fight Crawford, now it's that buzz you're talking about.
Well, I'm not sure, since I keep fading in and out here, exactly what I missed, but I did catch enough of it. I think the point of what I was trying to say was, if I put myself in Bob Arum's shoes, and I think like Bob Arum, and I just made myself ill when I said that if I'm going to do it that way, I'm going to go out and get the fight that's going to have the biggest buzz in the social media, all of that, people-wise. If I'm going to promote the best boxing match, yeah, that may be the case where I go find Sean Porter or someone of that ilk. But the problem is, as we've seen, that they being the Bob Arums of the world, are not going to make the best boxing match. They're going to make the best promotable match for the money, which again means that it's not on Terrence Crawford, it's on Bob Arum to do that. That's, I guess, the point I was making. But I agree with you guys that if you're going to have a fight, why would you go after Pacquiao? I mean, if it falls in your lap, take it. But go ahead and get the fight that we want to see, that the boxing people want to see, that proves that Terrence Crawford is pound for pound, he is the king of the welterweights, and all of that. Unfortunately, the promoters don't want to promote that, which seems to be backwards to me, because that would be, in my mind, an easier sell. Wouldn't it be easier to sell Crawford and Spence as opposed to try and sell Crawford and Pacquiao?
Frank, Pacquiao is a legend, so he will and he will sell, and they'll probably have a little documentary on him, and that will lift Crawford's publicity up to another thing. And see, I was just thinking while you're talking, I'm thinking I'm smiling because I'm thinking ahead. If I'm Crawford, say I stop Pacquiao, my first defense, I have 2 titles now because Pacquiao's a champion of WBA. How about I fight Keith Thurman? They've been talking about each other for a few years. Come on, man, bring it on. I mean, and Keith is a real good promoter. He'll promote, he'll do it. And if I'm Crawford, I mean, they don't dislike each other. If I might even consider going, hey, look, I'm not as good as this at you. I will admit you're better at this. I'm a better fighter than you, man. Better not say that. But you do more of the promoting, right? And I'll do my best, but I'm counting on you. And I'm sure Keith Thurman's thinking, the more I do, the more money. And Keith is a very smart guy. He knows what he's doing. So Keith Thurman and Terrence Crawford, I mean, come on. I don't know what Keith's got left with all his injuries, but
I'm laughing because I can see the conversation. You get us some scratch. I'll make sure I don't knock you out until the 10th.
Knock me out. You're going to knock me out.
You're
going to knock me out. Okay. Yeah.
All right. So, okay. So this kind of, and I think I've said this 7 times, but I keep getting cut off. Damn you, internet people. I think that where we're at now, and I don't mind it. I think it's pretty good. When we're looking at the free agent that was Canelo Alvarez, that suddenly has a fight against Callum Smith in less than a month after he becomes a free agent, which is hard to believe considering it took them a year to not have him fight or longer, and then he's able to come up with a fight on his own in less than a month. Charles, I know the answer to this, but I'm going to ask it anyway so we can get it out there. Is this the beginning of a new dawn of how we make fights and how fighters handle themselves?
I think the answer is yes. And I say that because of the fact that we've seen it done before, right? We've seen where we had 2 legends and Pacquiao and that other guy out there, TBE, when they wanted to fight. They met at a daggone basketball game and worked it out. And then once they worked it out, the promoters had no choice but to kind of come together because they didn't want to miss out. And if you really want to fight, and I think when the time comes for Spence and Crawford to really want to fight, they already talked about it. They're both naming each other off as what's on the hit list and how far it is. So I think when they both command it at the right time, I think it will happen. I think each is trying to figure out who's going to be the first to Pacquiao.
Right.
That golden goose, that golden ticket, right?
Yeah.
Getting first. And Aaron might have him first because he's in this camp or whatever. They had that connection or whatever. So who knows? But it's like that golden ticket. And then from there, I think the boxers decide. But the one thing I would say about this real quick, it is amazing how all of a sudden when Canelo dropped the suit and everything went away, he's a free agent. Now he has a fight. I'm going to throw one seed in there, and it probably is totally way over the top, anything like that, than anything that I may know of. But I'm going to just say this. Somebody, I think, that, I don't know who is part of his people are, who's part of his group, but it would not surprise me if there was one name that was around this whole thing of Canelo getting his fight quick or just being even serving as an advisor or consultant. And that name is Richard Schaefer.
And he hits it out of the park.
Yeah.
Right.
Could be.
Yeah.
It could be. And see, I think, too, is that Canelo just wants to be in charge. I mean, DAZN was throwing opponents at him, and he was saying, I don't want to fight him. I don't want to fight him. And Callum Smith that's a tough fight for Canelo. Callum Smith's 6'3". Canelo's barely 5'8" at the most. He's going to be giving up a lot of inches and reach, and Callum Smith can fight. He knocked out George Groves. He'd be the bigger guy. I mean, Canelo will likely win because he doesn't lose decisions, as we know. But Callum Smith is a competitive fight, and it is almost funny that he made the fight so fast. It's like, what? And it just tells you that, like you guys are saying, that they don't really need these big corporations to set this stuff up. They're giving him opponents and all this, but he is working with the Zone. And from what I understand, the Zone, who he was tied with before, offered him another contract, like a 2-fight contract. And he said, nope. Yeah. This is a 1-fight deal. And we were talking about that before. Remember, a few weeks ago, we were saying, we were right about that too. We brag a little more. We were saying he's probably going to just do 1-fight deals with whoever and be a free agent. And that's exactly what he's doing. So I'm actually quite excited that he did this. I thought I give all the kudos to Canelo. He could have sat out the rest of the year and said, look, I've been messing around with these legal issues, but he's fighting again, and it's a good fight.
Well, the thing that I'm hoping happens, and I agree with Charles to a certain extent, that hopefully this is the new trend of, okay, do you want to promote a fight? I got a fight for you to promote. But if you're not going to be the matchmaker, and again, we're going to go to Bob Arum on this, if you're not going to make the match, why should I let you promote the fight? Because right now you're not making the match, or at least the match that I want. Yeah, I can pick up the phone if I'm Bud Crawford or whatever. I can pick up the phone like, yo, Spence, what's up? I can find his number. I can hit him on Twitter. I can find him on Facebook. You want... As Charles said, we met at, they met at a basketball game. Do you want to have the fight? Because fight. Now you guys go ahead and promote the fight. That's what the promoter does. But it seems to be the other way around. That's what I don't get. And here we are frozen again.
Yeah, no, I mean, but to pick up on what you said, though, I mean, and the reason why I mentioned that name, Richard Schaefer, is because of the fact that this is a guy who knows the ins and outs of everything. When Oscar De La Hoya was having his problems and rehabbing and everything like that, he was the orchestrator behind making sure Golden Boy did not miss a beat.
He was running the company.
Right, basically. You find other people somebody like that on a consulting basis, you can't tell me. I'm going to do some research. I'm going to have to make some calls. You can't tell me. If that was me, he'd be one of the first people I call. He said, oh, you know what you need? Okay, make sure we do this over here. Do something over there. Now, your people can do it, but here's what I suggest. This is what I laid out for you. Here's all the things we need to have done to be successful. And that was me. That's the guy I would go to. He like, no, I don't need to be in the forefront. That's your thing. But this is your plan. You need a game plan. And no, you can't tell me. There might be a few other people, but that's the one guy I know. He can set it up and he can make it work for you because he has that much experience inside, even though he doesn't have his mainstream company or a name,
right?
Like, doing it. He clearly is capable.
Well, again, you're looking at how do you go about it, and when you have people know how to go about it.
He's frozen again, huh?
Yep.
Yeah, no, I agree with what you said, Charles, and that was really pulling a rabbit out of the hat there. Richard Schaefer has been kind of gone for a while, and for him to and you got to know that Canelo knows all about Richard Schaefer. He was part of Golden Boy so he knows about him, and Canelo's a smart kid, and he knows, like everyone, that when Richard Schaefer was running Golden Boy, it ran much smoother. Nothing personal. Right. It sounds personal against Oscar De La Hoya, but he can't help it. You always have people that are better at things, and Richard was better at running the company than Oscar. They didn't have a lot of the chaos. Oscar will say some things, and you'll go, "What did he say?" Didn't have any of that with Richard Schaefer. He, like you said, he stayed in the background. He's a very shrewd guy. He's a banker. He's very clever. He's perfect for the game in a sense because he's in the shadows. And that's what you want, and that could be. I mean, the way it all got taken care of so fast, and the way it makes you wonder, because Canelo's always been more, I'm a fighter, I'm not messing with all that crud. But he's 30 now, and maybe he figured, look, I know who I want in my corner, and it could have been that he called him. Or we were speculating before who he might consult with. We threw out a lot of names, but who knows? And if he suddenly appears with Canelo, or Canelo announces something, then you'll know you were right. In 2021, if suddenly Richard Schaefer is near where Canelo is, then you're right on the money. But which is interesting that boom, boom, bang, he got a fight and it was done. And I hope those big ego promoters were like, wow, we're going to be obsolete here if this is an example of how it's done. And that was exactly how it's done.
Right.
Well, and again, as we love to be the kings of the segue here, we're talking about big egos. What's going on with Deontay Wilder? And I hate asking questions like, so what do you think of? But Charles, what in the world?
I'll say this. I had a chance to watch an interview that he did with Brian Custer. He's a good guy, friend as well. And he's probably the first guy to get the exclusive interview. And in the interview, what was bizarre is that Deontay Wilder sticks to everything that he says, and he has a reason behind it. And he explains it to you. And even sometimes that he was really asked about it, Deontay was like, he understands the game. He said the game is nasty. He said it's filthy, it's cheating. And then he goes into a point of saying that Fury was a cheat before, and he cheats, and he cheats now. People should not be surprised about it. And then he starts to talk too about the Mark Breland situation. And for some reason or another, he doesn't think that Mark Breland was really truly in his corner. He might have been paid off or something. But the other part of it too, which I found real interesting, was he asked him about Mark Breland, and he said he thought Mark Breland should have paid attention to what he said. Mark Breland should have told him, should have just said, let him go out on the shield. If he get knocked out, he get knocked out. And then too, he said before, Mark Breland's job was to, if he saw he didn't look right, because he said coming out before the fight, they should have known that. And Mark Breland should have said, hey, champ, but we're not going to do this because you don't look right tonight. But one thing that they found that they did say, which was really interesting in the interview, was this. He has a friend, a guy that really works with him. I can't think of his name off the top of my head, but he's a real close associate. He does everything. He checks the wrapping of the hands for the other fighter and the gloves. That's Wilder's guy. And Brian asked him, what about your guy that checked the hand wraps? Because you're talking about how the gloves were flapping. What about your guy there that did that? You didn't fire him. How come you didn't fire him? He said, oh, he got really talked to you. I really talked to him, and he really got chewed out. But I don't think that was a great of an offense, blah, blah, blah. But it's his reasoning. He can say what he wants to. Sure. But I find that ironic. It is a hell of an interview, and I don't promote too many other people's stuff, but it's the first. It is the first one. You get a little thing about the whole thing, how it comes across. And all I know is this. Believe it or not, Deontay Wilder from that interview believes everything he's saying. He thinks it's the truth. And that's his truth. And he said he's going to fight again, but that's his truth. So we might have opinions on it, but he seems quite secure with what the tea that he's spilling out right now to the general public. So if you want to see something very interesting, check it out because it's the first one that I've seen. I'm sure there might be others, but it really gets you into, give you some answers as to what Deontay Wilder is saying.
It sounds like when you were a kid and someone would come to you like, who left the milk on the counter? You go, Well, the dog ran in, and when he looked out the window, there's a squirrel. So the dog got confused by the squirrel and then ran into me as he's chasing the squirrel, and the squirrel went up the tree. So I looked and said, well, I wonder what's up the tree the squirrel ran up after for. And then I went outside, and I got hit by the neighbor's Frisbee. And then when I came back inside, I looked and I went, oh, my shoe's untied. So I bent down to tie my shoe, and then I realized that the Mary Tyler Moore show was on. So I watched that for a little bit, and I came back in, and then I don't know who left the milk out, but it was there. I mean, it just seems like, and now you're going to solidify this whatever it is that happened without even answering the question. Again, we've seen people in public life dodge questions and make up stuff that, and we won't even get into recent history, of things that don't even make sense and fabricate things that don't even make sense. But is this helping Deontay Wilder at all, John? Isn't it about time someone should say, dude, just shut up?
Yeah, and I don't know if anybody's got the guts. You know, that's the problem when you got people that work for you and you're paying their salary. It's hard for people to really have the. And I don't know the guy, but the other trainer, I don't get the feeling that he's got the guts. He said some bad things about Mark Whelan after the fight, which were terrible things he said about him. You say that to Mark. You don't say that to the media.
Right.
And I lost all respect for that guy. I thought, talking about CYA again, that's all he was doing. Deontay really needs a good friend to say, look, okay, I'm going with what Charles said. You believe it. Okay, we have some, here we go, Frank. We have some politicians out there that say some outlandish things, and I think they believe it when they say it. It's their truth, like Charles said. So Deontay believes it. Maybe it's easier for him to kind of accept that he got beat, that it was this or it was that. Mm-hmm. But the truth will set you free, Deontay. And you know what? When you were talking about the what this, what I was thinking of, yours is better, but I was thinking, here we go again with old stuff. I was thinking about that song by Jim Croce, Bad Leroy Brown. And he's so bad, right? But what happens? He gets his butt kicked, and he really can't take it. And I really think that's the bottom line, and it's very parallel to George Foreman, who for years had excuse after excuse with Ali. He fired Dick Sadler after the fight because he said he did something to his water or somebody, happened, right? He was food poisoned or he was drugged or something. And I back to what we said when we were first talking about it. I think when you're that guy, when you're that heavyweight champion, you just don't think any other man can beat you like that. It's got to be because this ties in with
something else. Sure.
It's got to be because of the milk. It's got to be because of this. It's got to be the frisbee. It's got to be the gloves. It's got to be the suit that weighs 400 pounds. It's got to be something else.
It could
There's no way anybody beats me, especially when you're 41 or 42-0 going into that fight. Think about it. 42-0. You're not thinking about how close you might have came to losing because he came a little close. You're just thinking, I'm 42-0. There it is. That guy didn't. I knocked that guy down in the 12th round, and I knocked him out. I don't know how he got up. And the fight was a draw, so I didn't lose. So he fights him again. I just don't think he can really accept that he lost like he did. So he's going to convince himself. But back to what you said, if I was his best friend, I'd say, Deontay, shut up, get back to training, and get in the ring. But he's not going to.
It's kind of what Charles said that, if you tell the lie often enough, you start to believe the lie. I'll say, I'll make it up. But I wasn't around my hometown for several years. And so someone asked me, well, what's your basketball career? I had a game, I had 33 points and 18 boards and 12 assists. And you go back to your hometown and try to tell the same story. Like, that never happened. Huh?
No?
Oh, you're right. I was lying about that for the last 30 years. Oops. But you've told a lie so often, the story exactly. I dunked on 9 guys and kissed 3 cheerleaders on the way to the basket. Of course I did, because that's what I told the story. Like,
damn, Frank.
Oh, that really didn't happen. And who's going to tell him that? That's the thing. No one's going to tell him that's what believes it.
Charles will keep you real, Frank.
Yeah, Charles will keep you real. Yeah, Charles didn't believe I even played, so.
Look. He probably knocked me out, but I get a check, so I'll be good.
But the thing is, we're now to the point where we said, okay, we have boxing coming back. We have everything going on kind of sort of the way we want. It's not there yet, obviously. But Now we're starting to dig up the weird things again. And this is what has beset the heavyweights for quite some time. What do we do about the heavyweights? We had the Klitschko's that wouldn't fight each other, and then their fights were boring. We had the Oliver McCall thing. Now, I know I'm jumping, a ways back, but how does Lennox Lewis not beat Oliver McCall? Yeah, I still look at that one, just hit him. Just hit him. Tyson biting off Holyfield's ear. There's always something weird happening with the heavyweights, and now when it looks like we've got some solidification, we've got the guy who has had a pretty solid career suddenly make it look like he's mentally ill and he still wants to be part of the mix. Well, he's talked himself out of the mix. How do you do that? He was next in line and he talked himself out of it, and now he won't stop talking. It's just the strangest thing. I don't get it. So as we're looking at the way things are set up now, we have a few fights coming up. Let's cover that real quick, and we'll actually leave before the internet cuts us out again. We're looking at Errol Spence and Danny Garcia. That's coming up in another couple weeks. We're looking at, now we'll put this one on the schedule. Canelo Alvarez, Callum Smith. That's one that we weren't expecting. And other than that, what is it that we need to see? We're not going to talk about the exhibition. We'll get into that when it's time to get into it. What else is there that's going on in the next few months that we're going to look at and go, yeah, this is what we need? Charles, what else are you looking forward to in the next few months?
I want to see, of course, Shakur Stevenson. I guess he's fighting in December as well. Mm-hmm. Time that he fights is ready. You definitely want to watch that. And John, help me, is there going to be a rematch between our boy Chocolatito and somebody coming up sometime soon?
Supposed to be fighting Estrada again at some point in 2021. Yeah. 2021, yeah. He's supposed to fight him again, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm looking forward to that. But I will say this, watching that Wilder interview real quick, and I know this is speculation, he did mention that he's probably going to come back and fight in January at the latest February. And he mentioned some names. He mentioned Dylan White, mentioned some other people like that too. And so I'm looking forward to see what's going to happen with him. And as I get out this real quick, I'm going to say this. The one thing he did say, it kind of made a little sense. He said the one thing that he did is when he decided to fight, is it Ortiz?
Yes, fought him twice.
Yeah. When he said he fought Ortiz, he said, why is it that nobody else wants to fight that man? He said Ortiz is very dangerous. And he says he fought Ortiz because they had a relationship and he had some situations going on with his family. They needed help. And he said, I gave him money, same way he took care of Fury. You made some interesting points here. Said he gave Fury, was going through a tailspin or whatever.
Sure.
And he took care of him because he wanted to make sure he was good. But the whole Ortiz thing, he said, how is it ironic that nobody wants to fight him? Joshua doesn't want to fight him. Everybody's running from him, but I fought him twice.
I'd run from him too. Yeah.
But I mean, I think that's interesting. But I am interested in the Garcia Spence fight because this thing is going to say a lot because people really want to see where Spence is at the accident, and then if he does dispose of Danny Garcia pretty easily, then what?
Lots of things.
Right. Okay, John, what are we looking at, and what should we be looking at?
Well, you guys are right. Garcia Spence is one obviously I'm looking for. Joe Joyce against Daniel Dubois on November 28th. Couple of undefeated heavyweights. The young, up-and-coming Dubois is like 22, and Joyce is also like 35, but he's also an Olympian. On paper, it looks like Dubois, but Joyce is a clever, crafty kind of guy. That's for Charles. So it's a toss-up fight in a way, but he's also a strong guy. Joyce impressed me when he beat Bryant Jennings with ease. I didn't expect him to do that because I got a lot of respect for Bryant Jennings. He's a hell of a guy and a fighter. So he's better than I think. He's been working with Abel Sanchez. Not sure if he still is, but he's better. So I'm really looking forward to that one. That's right before Spence and Garcia. Really looking, obviously, that one. A lot of questions about that. We'll see where Spence is. I don't think they'd be taking the fight if they weren't confident that Spence is fine. that he's ready to go. And then that guy Joshua only fights once a year usually. He's fighting Pulev. That's December 12th, I believe. And then the 19th is Canelo and Callum Smith. And then January is the rematch because it's a rematch because Povetkin got COVID. Povetkin and Dylan White. A lot of pressure on Dylan White. He loses again. That's pretty much it. Yeah. So Deontay can mention fighting him, but White's got to win. He looked like he was on his way to winning. So you think sometimes when a fighter gets knocked out, you're never sure about his chin again. And White has gone down quite a few times in fights. So if Povetkin clips him again and he goes down again, then you know that he's pretty much finished. But I think he'll probably win. And then he's set up to fight Joshua again. You know, Joshua already stopped him in a hell of a fight a number of years ago. So, yeah, I just hope that 2021 is a little bit back to the normal way that we do this with the fans, because boxing really misses fans. You know, you guys have been to fights, right? I mean, all sports obviously miss fans, but boxing, that buzz in the arena that I talked about 2 weeks ago, it's still fine. We love boxing, so we'll watch it, but it's quiet. You can hear the corners, and it's surreal. It's like the theater. It's absurd in a way. You know, they're fighting, but. So I'm hoping that 2021, I don't know, no guarantees, get back to the more normal state. But boxing's rolling right now. Teddy Atlas said something, I think, that he thought the sport was dying again. Everybody says that every couple of years. The sport is dying, the sport is dying, the sport is dying. No. The boxing will. I don't think boxing will ever die because we are savages and we love to see two prime athletes start throwing bombs at each other. We love that, just like you got behind you there, Frank. So it's always going to be fine. It's just not going to be as popular unless some guy comes out of nowhere and he's a heavyweight and he's a little bit of a promoter and he's a good-looking dude. This is the only way. And he's good. That might capture the imagination of a number of people, like Tyson did, like Muhammad Ali did. You know, that. I don't know if Tommy the Duke Morrison for a while caught him because he was knocking everybody out. Something like that. That's the way it lifts it up. It's usually a heavyweight. But I think there's a lot of good stuff, Frank, and it's not just because I love boxing. There's a lot of good stuff for everybody coming.
Well, now you made me think about a couple things, and we talked about a few of these guys that I have in mind in the last few weeks, but there are, let's just say, 3 guys off the top of your head that are, I don't call them overlooked, but they either have belts or they're like 1 or 2 in the rankings, whatever. But we just don't see or talk to them about them that often. Charles, can you think of like maybe 2 or 3 guys who go, why don't we know more about him, or why isn't that name mentioned more, or something like that?
Yeah, definitely. I think in that 130 range was that Warrington?
Josh Warrington.
Josh Warrington, yeah.
I think Warrington is a guy, and you kind of see what's going on. With that being 2, trying to think who else? Warrington. Somebody else too would be. What is our guy that right below that? The one that fights once every 3 years.
Oh, Gary Russell Jr.
Russell Jr. I think is definitely somebody else that just right there too. And last but not least, I know you're gonna get tired of me banging the drum, but it's like Sean Porter, man. Seriously, because I mean, that to me is one of the guys. I mean, you could say Keith Thurman, but
you're gonna get a good fight out of him, right?
That's a guy that you like. You want to see him because you know what he's going to bring, and it's like everybody just keep glossing over it, and he's doing TV and he's fine with it, but nobody. It's like that elephant in the room. You like, we know it's right there in the middle, but we're going to avoid that elephant. Yeah.
All right, John, who are we missing out on?
Well, at 140, Jose Ramirez. He knocked out Maurice Hooker. He fights everybody. He's going to fight Josh Taylor. So, I mean, that's going to be a hell of a fight, him and Josh Taylor. You don't hear him mentioned very much. He lives so many hours from me, and he's very good. He's helping out the workers out there. He's a very decent guy. I mean, it's a great story, obviously. We love our stories. But you don't hear much buzz about him. And I thought Charles would mention these guys, and they get a little buzz. and then they just kind of die out again is obviously the Charlo brothers. I mean, thank God they're on the cover of Ring magazine, and then Andre. He's another one that.
Andre, there you go. Right.
Where is the talk now? Is that him or is it the promoter again? Where is the buzz? And that is so disappointing to me. I almost feel like you'll love this, Charles. I almost feel like dialing those guys up and going, look. Who is running your publicity?
Right, exactly.
I mean, come on, man.
Or is anyone?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, seriously, you got to keep your name in there. Exactly, and even just going to the fights, because if you go, you know, they let like 100 people, and I don't know about now, but they did. If you go, you'll get interviewed. So that's what I tell them. Look, I'll get an article out on you. You go to the fights. They don't do any of that stuff, and it's very disappointing. Very disappointing to me. So I'm sure there's other guys I'm missing. Lara from Houston, Texas. Hurd. Those guys, hell of fighters. You hear nothing from them, and that's really disappointing that happens in boxing. Seems like we always have these certain guys that get the most attention. And the other guys kind of get forgotten about until they fight. And then we go, wow, you know, if they fight, well, wow, that was really, and then boom, they're gone again. We forget about them. And I find that hard. That's got to be hard on them because you think you make it, and then, no, you didn't.
Then you really haven't, yeah. Well, we mentioned a couple of guys a few weeks ago. Jojo Diaz.
Yes.
You know, where, who, how. And that's one of those, if you mention the name, people are going to go, huh? You realize what kind of a career he's establishing right now. Miguel Burchell, another one. You go, well, does he? Oh, he owns the belt. Oh, wait, how is that possible? There's a belt holder we don't know about. You mentioned Andre. You know, there are several guys out there that just, as you said, who's doing their publicity, or is anyone doing their publicity? And here's another thing we could find out. This goes back to the free agent thing. You can be a free agent if you are Canelo Alvarez, or if you are Terrence Crawford, or if you're one of those guys. What about guys that aren't that level, or at least that level in our minds as far as publicity is concerned? Who's running promotions for Burchell?
Yeah.
I think he should be suing them
for breach of contract right now. Whatever they're supposed to do, they're not doing.
Isn't he with Top Rank? I think he's
have no idea.
But that guy's not a promoter.
Yeah, but again, those are the guys you go, no, right. Why don't we know about these guys? If I'm 24-0 and I'm the belt holder, at least one of the 4 or 8 or 12, shouldn't I be getting on at least ESPN Plus? You know, what's going on there? So those are the you know, again, I don't want to see a crappy fight just because we demanded a fight. But I want to be able to see guys that we know can fight and that we, you know, at least we've been talking about. And when we start talking about the rankings and the belt holders, these are guys that at least you get a fight every now and then, and especially as we're coming back now. So that's the thing that I have the biggest problem with the promoters is they're not promoting their fighters or putting them in venues. Again, nothing against undercards that we've just seen, but why don't we add some of these guys? You know, we mentioned Regis Prograis. Another guy that the average person would go, you know, I've heard that name, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's crazy.
It is.
I think one of the things though that we need to look at though.
Next week.
Yeah, no. I think one of the things that's important to look at is the factor that for a long time, the way that we've known how boxing is promoted is done a certain kind of way by a big name. You go from, you know, Arum, Don King. I mean, that's how it was. And those guys did what they did. But now, when you flip it the same way too, there's years ago, when you look at NBA basketball, that the general managers were the ones that kept everything going. But then you start to see where the players started to sign smaller contracts and started to control their own destinies. So if I want to play for the Brooklyn Nets like Kevin Durant, the GM is just signing along for the ride because he's like, hell yeah, we want you. Same way when he went to Golden State. So maybe we'll see the same thing with these top-notch boxers going like, you know what? Instead of signing with Aram or even like TBE did, right? Went ahead and said, I'm going to get the right people around me who love Richard Schaefer back in the day. And I'm going to get the right people around me, which means if I got the right people around me, somebody come along for the ride, I get a network, Showtime to do it, right? And then now I just hire somebody on the side to do the promotions, which it seems like Canelo's doing right now. So if he's doing a one fight thing with the zone, because they're not going to say no, okay? That's the other thing, keep it in perspective. You're not going to say no because they need the money.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
They'll play ball with you for a fight or two or whatever. Same way, whatever else you need. Again, we might see more of that happening now. That's more of the trend. And Canelo was watching TBE very closely. And he's probably just going to follow the lead to go, if he did it, I'm the top dog. I can do it. Because let's be real. With Canelo being a free agent, who's going to say no to him if he comes up with an idea who he wants to fight? Nobody.
Right.
Nobody.
Is it safe to assume, and I haven't used that in a month, but is it safe to assume that, just talking about the free agencies in different sports, you used to sign the long-term contract for security, right? The 5-year contract for $27 million was for security. Okay. Well, if you can sign the 1-year contract or the one fight contract for $9 to $12 million, you're as secure as you need to be. So why would you commit to 5 years if you weren't sure what those 5 years are going to play out? And if you're the GM, you're like, cool, I'm not stuck under a bad deal. I'm not stuck or anything else. I'll sign you the short term, and we'll try and keep you around. If it's not going, I won't have a job anyway, so it's no big deal. So if you are DAZN, PBC, or whomever, I think I would, looking at it with that perspective, I'd say, hey, there are 5 guys out there that we've got locked up long term, and it may not be secure for us either. Because looking at how this last year's played out, and I've got 5 of the top guys under contract, and they haven't fought, don't I still have to pay them a little something? Yeah. Let's avoid that. Let's be the better shop and take care of business, and they'll fly.
Yeah, Charles, the other thing too, I was thinking when you were talking, and Frank's making a really good point here, is that reading all these books that I read about older fighters, I'm reading one on a guy named Lou Jenkins right now. Oh, there's Frank. The way and those are good points, but the other thing I wish they would do, if I had a fighter that was good, you know what I would do? This is going to sound so crazy, but this is what they used to do. I would have him fight more. If you look back at Tyson, he was fighting every month. If you got a guy who's really good and you want to build his career and you want to make him, like we're talking about, you want to make him famous so you don't go bankrupt like that guy was talking about, you have him fight more than once a year. Take Bud Crawford, for example. What about, even doesn't really matter who he's going to fight next, but have him fight again. He had an easy fight in a sense. Face might have been a little swollen. Suddenly you announce he's fighting again in February. We'll find someone. We offer somebody enough money, they'll fight him.
Right.
So there's another, and then it's not like a setup, but in a sense it is. That's how you build somebody's career. You build them up. Not fighting once a year is not going to build a guy up. They're going to go, who was that who fought last year? Yeah. So, and you watch, and that's when I'm talking about the old fighters, that's how they did it. In New York City, they'd come back and fight a month later at Madison Square Garden, and they'd get a buzz, and they'd knock out another guy, and then they put him in with a hot shot. They used to do that at the Olympic that's behind me. The hot shots would eventually fight each other. They don't do that in boxing anymore, and I don't know if they're scared But if you want to make a guy where you're not saying like Bob Arum with his ridiculous comments about, oh, I'm going to go bankrupt, you got to build his career up. You can't be, you're supposedly managing or promoting his career. You're doing a crappy job there, buddy.
I look at it as a baseball pitcher where you've got so many pitches in that arm before Tommy John surgery comes around, and you don't know what it is until you hit that last pitch. You could be Nolan Ryan and pitch till you're 46. You could be someone who pitches until they're 19. You don't know. Each arm is different. So you're doing something like Gary Russell Jr. saying, I'm going to fight once every 2 years. I'm going to preserve myself, preserve my health. I'm not sure if that's why he's doing it. I'm just saying this in general. And then, after 12 fights, 14, 15 fights, I'm going to walk out of this great. Well, you might be that guy who only has 2 fights in him. Does it matter whether you fight those fights in 8 different years or 8 years is a gap, or if you fight them in 3 months? This is what I think is wrong with what they're looking at. If you're
fine with that, that's fine, Frank. If that's what you want.
Right. But if you say, I'm trying to preserve myself and my health and all that for my well-being, my family and all that, that's cool. I don't have a problem with that. But you don't know, unless it's been medically proven, whether the accumulation of punches from a fight in September is going to impact the accumulation of punches in a fight set in March, or whether more time off allows you to be a better fighter next September. Now, you may know that as a fighter, how you feel, but the promoters don't know that. So if you're spacing it out for health reasons, then I need some medical data backup for that. If you're spacing it out for monetary reasons, well, I don't see that at all because your guy's not fighting. And this goes back to the Canelo thing. Why isn't he fighting? Why can't you find him? You mean to tell me you can't find anybody to fight this guy for the money he wants and the fight that he wants? He names 5 fighters, it'll go. I don't understand how that didn't work. So, Charles, how is it that we're not seeing guys fight more? And is it because of, or do you think it's because of they're trying to save themselves for the future and for their own security, or is it just the promoters just aren't putting on fights?
I think it's the promoters are not putting on fights. The reason
but why wouldn't they do that?
Because of the factor that there's game plans. They're looking long term, Frank. They're looking at long term. And if you put your fighter in with somebody and it doesn't have a title connected to it, and there's not money connected to it, there's not, we don't have any fans right now, which means less money for the gate. There's no gate really, right? So they got to get very creative on scheduling fights or having fights that, one, people will watch, some little gate, and then 2, that makes sense to keep people going on. But I think you have to get creative. The one thing I'll say this too is I think there's promoters. And now it's going to fall more on the fighters. It just is. The fighters are going to have to take it upon themselves to go, yeah, I'm paying you, but I'm losing money, especially with this pandemic. And one example I'll give you 2 real quick, which makes it clear to me, is on the fighter. Top Rank with Mr. Arum has Crawford, has a number of other fighters. But there's one fighter. He's young, wild, maybe you call him crazy, insane, whatever, just being young. Shakur Stevenson just fought recently. He's fighting again in December. They had a guy that was one, I can't think of the name, was a top ranked guy that had a cancellation. And Shakur Stevenson said, "Can I jump in? I won't fight." And the guy, he said, "Nah, you can't do that." Shakur Stevenson, right. He don't want to fight me because he's scared of me. He said, "I'll fight him," but he's still wanted another fight. My point of it is, under the same organization that handles Terrence Crawford, this young, spry, crazy, off the chain young guy that has greatness and a great legacy and is zeroed in, is forcing the hand of the promoter to make a fight for him. They never told him, if they did, he's not listening. And Andre Ward is in his corner as well. This guy's like, I'm fighting in December. Then you turn around, if I fight in March, if I fight somebody worthwhile, I'll fight them too.
It's supposed to be, yeah.
It is coming back to the fighters. and they're going to have to grab it if they really want to move forward, because a lot of these promoters, God bless Mr. Aram, they're getting older. It's an old way of thinking. And the way that this thing is going, who says this COVID thing is going to flip real quick?
Right. So,
you notice Canelo said, I've been waiting 2 years.
Right.
Damn year. I'm fighting in December.
Right.
He said, I just got the verdict. Get me a fight. I cannot afford to wait because people are getting older. And it's just changing. You don't know what's going to happen. So it's going to really take. One thing you can say about Canelo, he's supposed to be the guy. He's taking the reins by the hands, going, I'm fighting because I don't know what the future holds. We don't know what's going on in this world, but I need to be seen. And I think that's where we're moving towards. If a fighter wants to be successful and continue to have his name out there and continue to make money.
Well, I'm no math whiz, but I think I've done this right. Correct my math if I'm wrong. But if you're going to hold one fight that say nets $2 million, or you're going to have 3 fights that net $800,000 a piece, what works better mathematically there? The more fights you have, the better off you are, unless you've got a blockbuster in your back pocket that everyone's going to want to see. So if I'm the front, like, let's get these guys going. Now, if it's a health thing and you're worried about their health, okay, I'm not going to say put him out there if you're going to hurt him long term and all that. I get that. That's all fine and good. But that doesn't seem to be what they're doing. So I don't know. Well, intermittently, we've managed to get through this show. It's been kind of tough. I know I faded out 3 or 4 times and I fell asleep twice. So
at least.
But I think where we're at,
look at Charles.
We're almost there. Sorry, I had to do that. We're almost where we need to be. So, John, let's just ignore him for a minute.
I can't ignore him. I'm getting hypnotized by what he's doing over there.
See, now I'm in Milli Vanilli mold, so I can't even do that. So, but I'm just gonna say goodbye and leave it at that.
It's fine.
Blame it on the rain. Okay. All right. We'll get into this later. We have fun doing this. Obviously, we do. So, everybody, when you get a chance, spread the love. Tell other people we're here, and bring other people around because this is a lot of fun. We'll talk to a lot of people about what we're talking about. Spread the love and enjoy. And happy. Well, we'll have to discuss that whether we're going to be here for the holidays or not. But we'll let everybody know if we are or not. Come on back and enjoy. Thank you.
Call me.
They will.
Which is